3 weeks after the standoff began, the Portland police station had become the unofficial capital of interspecies diplomacy. The Harvester fleet remained in orbit, but their communications had evolved from demands to questions, from threats to requests for clarification. The baby, now developing at an unprecedented rate, had become Earth's first interspecies ambassador. Its empathic abilities had grown to encompass not just humans and Kethvar, but extended to the Harvester consciousness itself, creating the first direct emotional bridge between species separated by vastly different evolutionary paths. Dr. Vasquez worked around the clock to facilitate communications, as the Harvesters struggled to process concepts that had no equivalent in their experience. Their latest transmission reflected their growing transformation. Human Designation Officer Martinez. Emotional input regarding offspring protection continues to generate confusion in fleet consciousness. Request demonstration of love application in non-crisis scenarios. Officer Martinez, now permanently assigned as the baby's guardian, smiled as she prepared another bottle. The child watched her movements with understanding that seemed to transcend its apparent age. Love isn't just about crisis, she explained to the communication array. Watch this. She began the daily routine that had developed over the past weeks. Feeding time became a demonstration of patience as the baby learned to coordinate its feeding responses. Bath time showcased gentle care and playful interaction. Reading time, though the baby couldn't yet understand words, demonstrated the human commitment to long-term development rather than immediate utility. Each activity was accompanied by the baby's empathic broadcasts, allowing the Harvester fleet to experience parental satisfaction, protective instincts, and joy derived from another being's growth and happiness. Kethvar observed these interactions with continuing amazement. Its own transformation had been equally remarkable. Exposure to human concepts of family and choice had fundamentally altered its relationship with its own species. Simian Collective contacts me with increasing frequency, Kethvar reported to Agent Torres. My description of human family structures creates curiosity among my people. Many question efficiency of group survival over individual welfare. The breakthrough came when the baby demonstrated a new development. During a feeding session, it reached out toward the communication array and produced sounds that were immediately translated by Kethvar's device. Why fear love? Love makes strong, not weak. The simplicity of the question, coming from a being barely 3 weeks old, silenced the Harvester fleet for 6 hours. When they responded, their communication contained elements that had never appeared in their transmissions before. Unknown. Emotional input suggests strength through vulnerability, power through protection of weak. These concepts contradict fundamental operational parameters. Request. Guidance. Agent Torres realized they had reached the crucial moment. They're asking us to teach them. Over the following days, Earth became host to the galaxy's first school for emotional intelligence. The Harvesters began sending smaller vessels to observe human interactions in various settings. They watched families in parks, studied teachers in classrooms, observed medical workers caring for patients. Each observation session was accompanied by the baby's empathic broadcasts, allowing the Harvesters to feel what humans experienced during acts of care, sacrifice, and love. The results were transformative. Harvester communications evolved from mechanical efficiency reports to something approaching curiosity, then wonder, and finally what could only be described as gratitude. Human demonstration of resource expenditure for others' welfare generates positive feedback in fleet consciousness. This experience was unknown in our expansion protocols. We begin to understand why species development under protection exceeds development under dominance. Dr. Kim's analysis of the babies continued. Development provided the scientific foundation for what they were witnessing. The child's brain is literally rewiring itself based on the emotional environment. Every act of kindness, every demonstration of care, creates new neural pathways that enhance cognitive abilities. The same thing is happening to the Harvesters, Dr. Vasquez added. Their collective consciousness is adapting to incorporate emotional concepts. They're evolving in real time. The moment that changed galactic history came when the Harvester fleet made an unprecedented decision. They requested permission to land. We wish to experience family directly. Request assignment to protection duty for offspring currently designated as Earth's first child. The landing took place at Portland International Airport, with the baby present in Officer Martinez's arms. The harvester beings that emerged from their ships bore no resemblance to any Earth species. Crystalline structures that communicated through harmonics, they moved with mechanical precision until they encountered the baby's empathic field. The change was immediate and profound. Their rigid formations softened into something resembling curiosity. Their communications shifted from harmonic precision to something approaching wonder. When the baby reached out toward the nearest harvester, extending tiny fingers toward the crystalline surface, the being's response carried across every communication network on Earth. We understand now. Strength through protection, growth through love. We have been inefficient. Kethver served as intermediary for the historic negotiations that followed. The harvesters didn't just agree to end their expansion program. They requested membership in what humanity had begun calling the Protection Alliance. Our expansion methods generated compliance through fear, their representative explained. Human methods generate cooperation through care. Your results exceed ours by every measurable parameter. The baby, now officially named Hope Martinez Kethvar, in recognition of its dual heritage, continued to serve as an empathic bridge between species. Its presence had created the galaxy's first truly cooperative interspecies relationship. 6 months later, the Portland Police Station hosted representatives from 17 different species, all drawn by reports of a civilization that had achieved what no other species had imagined: strength through compassion. Officer Martinez, now Earth's first interspecies child protection specialist, looked down at Hope during their morning routine. The baby was developing abilities that promised to revolutionize galactic cooperation, but it was still, fundamentally, a child who giggled during bath time and fell asleep most easily when surrounded by family. You know what the most amazing part is? She said to Kethvar, who had become not just Hope's guardian but Earth's ambassador to the Simian Collective. What is that, family sister Martinez? The harvesters spent centuries trying to create the perfect translator between species. They wanted something that could help them control other civilizations. Instead, they accidentally created something that teaches cooperation. They thought they were making a tool, but they made a teacher. Hope looked up at both of them with eyes that held the wisdom of multiple species and made a sound that needed no translation from any device. In the baby's empathic broadcast, every being in the room felt the same message: family, safety, love, home. Outside, ships from across the galaxy waited patiently for their turn to learn what humanity had known all along: that the strongest families are the ones who choose each other, and that true strength comes not from the power to conquer, but from the courage to protect. The gorilla who had walked into a police station holding a baby had changed the galaxy forever. Not through force or technology, but through the simple act of trusting humanity to do what they did best: love a child that needed a family. And in return, that child had taught the universe a lesson that would resonate across the stars for generations to come. That love, not fear, was the foundation of true strength. The first harvester attack came at dawn, energy beams designed to disable rather than destroy. They struck power grids, communication networks, and transportation hubs with surgical precision. The message was clear: surrender would be humanity's only option once their infrastructure collapsed. The harvesters had miscalculated. Within minutes of the power grid failures, backup systems activated across the globe. Not government systems or military installations, but civilian networks that no species in the galaxy had ever developed. Ham radio operators connected continents. Solar panel owners shared power with neighbors. Mesh networks maintained by gamers and hobbyists kept communication flowing when official channels failed. In the Portland Police Station, now designated as Earth's first embassy to an allied alien species, Dr. Vasquez watched in amazement as her equipment remained fully operational despite the surrounding blackouts. The entire neighborhood is running extension cords to our building, Officer Rodriguez reported. Families are bringing us their generators, car batteries, anything that can provide power. Kethver studied the human response patterns with growing fascination. Harvesters target central authority structures. Expect population collapse when leadership systems fail. But humans operate distributed support networks. No single point of failure. The baby, now 6 days old but displaying cognitive abilities of a much older child, watched the activity with alert interest. Dr. Kim's latest tests showed neural development that defied every known model of brain growth. The baby's responding to the cooperative atmosphere, she explained to Agent Torres. Every act of support, every person working together, seems to accelerate its development. It's literally growing stronger from witnessing human cooperation. This observation led to a breakthrough discovery. Dr. Vasquez noticed that the baby's presence was having an unexpected effect on the humans around it as, well, look at the coordination levels. She pointed to her behavioral analysis screens. People working around the baby are showing enhanced problem-solving abilities, improved communication, faster learning curves. The empathic abilities aren't one way. The baby is somehow enhancing human cooperation. Kethavar confirmed what the data suggested. Young one demonstrates amplification abilities, strengthens positive traits in nearby beings. Under stress, this capability dormant. In protection environment, develops exponentially. The implications were staggering. The harvesters hadn't just created a translator being. They had accidentally created a catalyst for cooperation, a being that could enhance the best qualities of any species it encountered. Outside, the human response to the harvester attacks was unlike anything in galactic history. Military forces shared resources across national boundaries. Scientists collaborated without regard for proprietary research. Citizens organized supply chains, medical support, and communication networks with efficiency that impressed even their own governments. General Sarah Martinez, Officer Martinez's sister and head of North American Aerospace Defense, arrived at the precinct with updates from the global defense effort. 63 countries have contributed technology, personnel, or resources, she reported. We're seeing cooperation levels that exceed anything achieved during peacetime. The harvesters' attacks are actually making us stronger. The proof came when Earth's improvised defense network successfully interfered with the second wave of harvester attacks. Using everything from modified satellite dishes to jury-rigged radio telescopes, human engineers had created a planetary defense grid that operated on principles the harvesters couldn't counter. They don't understand redundancy, explained Dr. James Park, the MIT physicist who had coordinated the defense network. Their technology assumes centralized control. Our system has 10,000 control nodes, any of which can operate independently. Kethavar translated the growing confusion in harvester communications. Fleet reports unprecedented resistance patterns. Request tactical guidance for dealing with species that strengthens under attack. Command structure indicates no protocols exist for this scenario. The turning point came when the baby demonstrated a new ability. During a particularly intense harvester assault, as energy beams struck the building's shields, the infant made sounds that Kethavar's device couldn't translate. Instead, the communication was felt directly by everyone in the room: peace, safety, protection, love. The emotional broadcast was so powerful that officers throughout the building stopped their work and turned toward the break room where the baby lay. But more importantly, the harvester attacks ceased immediately. The baby just communicated directly with the harvester fleet, Dr. Vasquez realized. He had projected human emotional concepts directly into their consciousness. Agent Torres coordinated with the global communication network. Are you saying the baby can make them feel what we feel? Kethavar's response revealed the true magnitude of what had occurred. Harvesters operate without emotional context. First time in their species' history experiencing concepts like protective love, selfless sacrifice, joy from others' welfare. This creates confusion. The confusion was evident in the next harvester transmission. For the first time, their communications contained elements that could only be described as uncertainty. Unknown emotional input detected. Request clarification of protective love designation. Explain resource expenditure for joy from others' welfare. These concepts require understanding. Humanity's response came not from government officials but from the Portland police station. Officer Martinez, holding the baby who had become the center of an interspecies crisis, spoke directly to the harvester fleet. You want to understand love? She said. Her voice carried across every communication network on Earth. Love is choosing to put someone else's needs before your own. It's working extra shifts to buy better formula for a baby that isn't even your species. It's every person in this building who's missed sleep, missed meals, missed time with their own families to protect one child. She gestured to the crowds visible through the windows. Thousands of people holding vigil for a baby they'd never met. Love is every person out there who came here not because they had to, but because they couldn't stand the thought of a child being hurt. It's choosing to face your ships rather than hand over someone who needs protection. The baby reinforced her words with another emotional broadcast, this time sending concepts of family, belonging, and unconditional acceptance directly to the harvester consciousness. The response from orbit came after the longest silence yet. Emotional input requires processing time. Defensive posture will be maintained pending understanding achievement. For the first time since the crisis began, the harvester ships stopped moving into attack formation. They held position, neither advancing nor retreating, while an entire fleet tried to comprehend concepts they had never encountered. In the precinct, Cathvar made an observation that would reshape humanity's understanding of their place in the universe. Young One has accomplished what no military force in galaxy has achieved. Harvester fleet is experiencing doubt. First time in their expansion history, they question whether their methods are optimal. The baby looked up at the assembled humans with eyes that seemed far older than its days, and made a sound that every person in the room understood without translation. Hope. The harvester deadline arrived at 3:47 a.m. Pacific time, but the Portland police station was far from quiet. Word had spread across the globe, and what had begun as a local crisis had transformed into humanity's first unified response to an extraterrestrial threat. President Chen addressed the world from the Oval Office, while Agent Torres coordinated with military commands on 6 continents. The message was simple and unprecedented. Earth's first interspecies child would be protected at all costs. My fellow citizens of Earth, the president's voice carried through speakers in the precinct, we face a choice that will define humanity's place in the universe. We can surrender an innocent child to beings who view compassion as weakness, or we can stand united in defense of the values that make us human. In the precinct, Cathvar listened to the translation with growing amazement. Your leader speaks of species unity in defense of single offspring. This is unprecedented in galactic civilizations I have observed. Officer Martinez, now officially designated as the baby's primary caregiver, looked down at the sleeping child. In just 4 days, the infant had grown noticeably, not just physically but cognitively. Its eyes tracked conversations with understanding that seemed far beyond its apparent age. What's the baby's real capabilities? Dr. Kim asked after completing another round of tests. The neural development we're seeing shouldn't be possible. Kethavar's explanation revealed the true scope of what they were protecting. Hybrid consciousness possesses accelerated learning from both genetic lines. But human environment provides crucial element, emotional security. In safety, young one develops exponentially. Under threat, development slows. Harvesters create environments of constant stress to limit potential. Detective Chen studied the orbital tracking displays. The 12 ships maintained perfect formation above Earth's major population centers. They're not just here for the baby, are they? Negative, Cathvar confirmed. Baby represents proof of concept. Successful hybrid development means large-scale breeding programs. Earth population becomes resource for genetic experiments. Your species becomes slave producers of translator beings for harvester expansion. The scope of the threat finally became clear. This wasn't about one child. It was about the future of human freedom. Dr. Vasquez made a discovery that changed their understanding of the situation entirely. While analyzing the baby's latest cognitive assessments, she found something extraordinary in its brain patterns. The baby isn't just learning human behavior, she announced excitedly. It's developing telepathic abilities. Look at these readings during interactions with Cathvar. The scans showed synchronized neural activity between the baby and Cathvar during their communications, suggesting they were sharing thoughts directly rather than relying solely on the translation device. More than telepathy, Cathvar corrected. Young one demonstrates empathic resonance, feels emotional states of others, responds with appropriate comfort behaviors. This trait absent in simian collective, unknown in harvester species. Agent Torres realized the implications immediately. The baby could potentially communicate with the harvesters directly, understand their thoughts, maybe even influence them. If it develops an environment of protection and love, Cathvar agreed. Under torture conditions, abilities remain dormant. Another reason harvesters must not succeed. Outside, the global response continued to intensify. Cities worldwide declared themselves sanctuary zones for the Earth Child, as media had begun calling the baby. Scientists offered research support, military units volunteered for protection duty, and ordinary citizens organized around the simple principle that no child should suffer, regardless of origin. The moment that defined humanity's choice came when the Harvester fleet transmitted their final ultimatum. Species designation human. You have exceeded compliance timeframe. Prepare for collection protocols. Resistance will result in comprehensive subjugation of planetary population. The response came not from government officials or military commanders, but from an unexpected source. Officer Rodriguez, the desk sergeant who had first witnessed Kethvar's arrival, requested permission to speak for the precinct. Harvester fleet, he began, his voice carrying over global communication networks. This is Sergeant Miguel Rodriguez, Portland Police Department. I've been a cop for 23 years. I've seen a lot of evil in that time, but I've also seen a lot of good. I've seen humans risk their lives for strangers, adopt children from war zones, donate organs to people they'll never meet. He paused, looking at the baby in Martinez's arms. What you're asking us to do goes against everything we are. You want us to hand over a baby to beings who torture children. That's not happening. Not today, not ever. You want this child, you'll have to go through every human being on this planet. The response from orbit was swift and terrifying. Energy beams lanced down from the 12 ships, striking uninhabited areas around major cities. The message was clear: submit or face the consequences. But something unexpected happened. Instead of cowering, humans responded with defiance. Military units positioned themselves around population centers. Scientists worked frantically to understand Harvester technology. Most importantly, ordinary citizens refused to evacuate, creating human shields around government buildings, hospitals, and schools. Kethvar watched the global response with something approaching awe. In all galactic civilizations observed, species submit when faced with superior technology. Humans choosing collective resistance over individual survival. This behavior unknown in Harvester experience. Dr. Kim made a crucial observation about the baby during the crisis. Look at its stress indicators. Despite the chaos around us, the baby is calmer than it's been since arrival. It's responding to our determination to protect it. The infant, as if understanding, reached out toward the communication array and made soft sounds that seemed almost like attempts at speech. Kethvar's device translated the vocalizations as something approximating family safe, family strong. Agent Torres coordinated with Aerospace Command as Earth's defenses mobilized. What they lacked in advanced technology, they made up for in sheer numbers and determination. Every satellite, every radar installation, every communication array was repurposed to support the defense effort. The Harvesters are about to learn something, Torres announced to the assembled group. They've encountered cooperative species, logical species, even aggressive species. But they've never encountered a species that fights harder for others than for themselves. The baby made another sound. And this time, Kethvar's translation device rendered it as something that made every human in the room smile despite the circumstances. Home. Kethvar looked around the precinct, at the officers who had worked around the clock to provide care, at the scientists who had dropped everything to ensure the baby's safety, at the crowds outside holding vigils for a child they'd never met. Young one is correct, Kethvar said. This is home. First home in galaxy where protection given without expectation of return. First family chosen rather than assigned. Outside, the Harvester ships began moving into attack formation. Inside, humanity prepared to fight for the principle that every child deserves protection, regardless of what world they came from. 8 hours before the Harvester deadline, Dr. Elena Vasquez made a discovery that changed everything. She had been working nonstop to improve communication with Kethvar when she noticed something extraordinary in the translation patterns. Agent Torres, you need to see this. Elena called urgently from her workstation. Kethvar isn't just learning English. It's developing concepts that don't exist in its original language. Torres hurried over, followed by Detective Chen and Officer Martinez, who refused to leave the baby's side even for a moment. The infant seemed remarkably alert for its age, tracking conversations with unusual focus. Show me, Torres demanded. Elena pulled up a comparison of Kethvar's early communications versus its recent statements. Look at this progression. 3 days ago, it could only express basic needs and warnings. Now it's using abstract concepts like moral obligation, individual dignity, and protective love. These aren't translations from its native language. These are new ideas it's developing through exposure to human behavior. Kethavar approached the workstation, its massive frame moving with careful grace to avoid intimidating the humans around the baby. Its communication device activated, and the words that emerged were more fluent than ever before. Dr. Vasquez speaks truth. My people understand group survival, resource allocation, hierarchy maintenance, but watching human protectors, I learn new concepts. You have word sacrifice that means choosing others' welfare over own survival. In Simian Collective, this is considered mental illness. Officer Rodriguez, who had been quietly observing, asked the question they were all thinking. What changed your mind? The answer that came through the translation device was accompanied by gestures toward the baby, toward the assembled officers, toward the crowds visible through the windows. Observation of human behavioral patterns during crisis. When young one cried, every human within hearing range showed physiological stress responses. When young one was content, humans relaxed. Your species treats protection of young as primary directive, overriding personal safety, resource conservation, even group loyalty. Detective Chen nodded slowly. You're talking about maternal instinct. Paternal instinct. More than instinct, Kethavar corrected. Conscious choice. Humans extend protection to young that share no genetic relationship. Adoption, fostering, rescue of young from other species. This behavior makes no evolutionary sense by harvester logic or simian collective understanding. Dr. Kim, monitoring the baby's vital signs, made an intriguing observation. The child's neural activity spikes every time it hears Kethavar's explanations about human behavior. It's not just listening, it's learning. This revelation prompted Agent Torres to authorize an unprecedented experiment. They would allow Kethavar to attempt direct communication with the orbiting harvester fleet, using its enhanced understanding of human concepts to explain why Earth would not surrender the baby. The communication array established contact within minutes. The voice that responded was cold, mechanical, filtered through translation systems that stripped away all emotional nuance. Kethavar designation 7742. You have committed breach of service contract. Return hybrid offspring and submit for reconditioning. Compliance ensures minimal punishment for your violation. Kethavar's response marked a turning point in its transformation. Where once it might have defaulted to submission, it now spoke with newfound conviction. I reject reconditioning. I reject service contract. Young one under protection of beings who value individual welfare over group efficiency. This is called family in human concept. I choose family over contract. The silence from orbit lasted several minutes. When the harvester response came, it carried undertones of confusion that the translation system struggled to process. Family unit designation has no logical basis. Genetic offspring receive protection priority. Non-genetic offspring represent resource drain without benefit. Explain compliance rationale. This was the moment Dr. Vasquez had been hoping for. She activated every recording device in the room as Kethavar prepared to explain something that no other species in the galaxy apparently understood. Human family extends beyond genetics. Adoption creates parent-child bonds indistinguishable from biological relationships. Humans sacrifice resources, safety, comfort for offspring that share no DNA markers. They call this love and consider it fundamental to existence meaning. Love designation lacks measurable parameters. Clarify resource allocation logic. Kethavar gestured to Officer Martinez, who was bottle-feeding the baby while 3 other officers hovered nearby with blankets, toys, and endless patience observed behavior patterns. Human female Martinez works extra shifts to afford superior nutrition for young one. Officer Rodriguez modified personal vehicle to transport baby safely. Detective Chen canceled family obligations to remain available for protection duty. None receive additional compensation. None expect genetic legacy continuation. All choose resource expenditure for young one welfare. The baby, as if understanding the conversation, reached up and grasped Martinez's finger. Her immediate smile and soft words of encouragement were caught by every camera in the room. This response, Kethavar continued, provides no evolutionary advantage, serves no group survival function, yet creates physiological pleasure response in human caregivers. Humans derive satisfaction from nurturing success of others. This is called fulfillment, and represents primary life goal for many individuals. Agent Torres realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. Not just first contact, but the first attempt to explain human emotional complexity to a species that operated purely on logical resource management. These harvester response revealed their confusion was growing rather than diminishing. Emotional satisfaction from resource expenditure on non-genetic offspring represents system malfunction. This behavior should be eliminated through selective breeding protocols. Why does species maintain non-productive traits? Cathavar's answer drew from weeks of observation and hours of conversation with humans willing to explain their motivations. Because productivity is not primary human value. Humans measure success by welfare of most vulnerable members. Species that creates individual security through group protection, generates innovation, creativity, sacrifice that exceeds some of individual capabilities. Harvesters measure wrong variables. Chief Williams, listening to this exchange, felt something click into place. They don't understand that our weakness is actually our greatest strength. Exactly, Elena breathed. Empathy isn't a bug in human programming. It's a feature. It's what makes us formidable. The baby made a small sound, drawing everyone's attention. For the first time since arriving, it was looking directly at the communication array, as if aware that its fate was being decided by the conversation taking place. Cathavar noticed the child's attention and spoke directly to it in sounds that needed no translation. The baby responded with vocalizations that seemed almost like attempts at mimicking the communication patterns. "Young one understands," Cathavar announced. "Hybrid consciousness developing beyond harvester projections. Shows preference for protection over power, nurturing over domination. This is human influence. The harvester fleet's final transmission before the deadline carried a tone that might have been frustration. Genetic experiment has been contaminated by subject species behavioral patterns. Retrieval necessary to prevent further corruption of design parameters. Compliance will be enforced." As communication ended, Cathavar turned to the assembled humans with an expression that transcended species barriers. It was the look of someone who had found purpose worth fighting for. Now we discover if human family concept proves stronger than harvester enforcement protocols. The Portland police station had been transformed into humanity's first interspecies diplomatic outpost within hours. Military personnel set up communication arrays while scientists from NASA, SETI, and classified research divisions worked alongside Dr. Vasquez to establish proper communication protocols with both the gorilla and the orbiting ships. Agent Torres stood before a hastily assembled council that included the police chief, military representatives, and a video link to the president's emergency cabinet. The baby slept peacefully in Officer Martinez's arms while the gorilla sat nearby, its intelligent eyes tracking every conversation. "Ladies and gentlemen," Torres began, "we're facing an unprecedented situation. The being we've been referring to as the gorilla is actually called Cathavar, a member of the Simian Collective, an advanced civilization that has been secretly observing Earth for over 2 centuries. Dr. Vasquez activated her improved translation system, and Cathavar's device produced sounds that emerged from the speakers as heavily accented but understandable English. Greetings, protectors of young ones, the translation rendered. I bring you urgent knowledge of danger to both our peoples. The room fell silent. After 36 hours of speculation and theory, they were finally hearing directly from their visitor. Police Chief Williams, a practical man with little patience for complexity, asked the obvious question. "What kind of danger?" Cathavar gestured toward the baby, then activated a holographic display that materialized above its communication device. The 3-dimensional images showed star maps, ship configurations, and what appeared to be biological specimens in containment units. "The harvester fleet," the translation continued. "They move through galaxy, collecting genetic material from promising species. My people, your people, many others. They create hybrid offspring to serve as translators, bridges between conquered species." Elena worked frantically to process the complex linguistic structures as Cathavar continued. The story that emerged was chilling. The Simian Collective had achieved space travel centuries before humans developed agriculture, but they had also attracted the attention of the harvesters. For generations, Cathavar's people had served as unwilling subjects in genetic experiments, designed to create perfect intermediaries for species subjugation. The young one you protect, Kethavar indicated the sleeping baby, represents their latest attempt. Human genetic adaptability combined with simian cognitive enhancement. But something unexpected occurred. The holographic display shifted to show DNA sequences that made the attending scientists gasp in recognition. The hybrid didn't just combine our traits, Agent Torres translated as Kethavar continued. It amplified them, enhanced emotional intelligence, pattern recognition, and most importantly, an instinctive understanding of justice and protection that neither species possesses alone. Dr. Sarah Kim, the lead geneticist who had been analyzing the baby's blood samples, confirmed what the display suggested. The genetic markers we couldn't identify aren't just alien. They're completely new combinations that shouldn't be stable but are. This child represents an evolutionary leap that combines the best traits of both species while eliminating many weaknesses. The implications were staggering. The harvesters had accidentally created something they couldn't control, a being that understood both human compassion and simian wisdom, while possessing an innate drive to protect the innocent. That's why you escaped, Officer Martinez said, understanding flooding her voice. The baby wasn't developing the way they expected. Kethavar's translation device conveyed what could only be interpreted as emotional pain. Young ones showed distress when witnessing suffering of others, refused sustenance when other young ones were denied. Harvesters saw this as defect to be corrected through pain conditioning. The room erupted in angry murmurs. Detective Chen had interviewed enough abuse cases to recognize the implications immediately. They were torturing a baby to try to break its empathy. That's when you decided to run, Martinez concluded. Kethavar's response revealed the depth of sacrifice involved in its decision. Simian collective values group survival above individual conscience. My choice to prioritize young ones' welfare over species obligation makes me exile, criminal. But observation of human behavior suggested your species chooses different path. Chief Williams looked around the room, noting the faces of his officers. Every one of them had unconsciously moved closer to the baby, forming a protective circle. You were right about that. Agent Torres received an urgent communication through her earpiece. The ships in orbit are demanding a response within 12 hours. Military Command wants to know our negotiating position. What negotiating position? Officer Rodriguez interjected. They're threatening us for protecting a baby from torture. There's no negotiation here. The wisdom of Kethavar's choice became clearer as the hours progressed. Word of the situation had leaked to local media, and despite federal attempts at containment, the story was spreading. Social media exploded with images of the gorilla gently caring for the baby, while human officers provided support. The public response was immediate and overwhelming. Protect the Baby began trending worldwide within hours. Offers of support poured in from every corner of the globe. Parents, teachers, child welfare advocates, and ordinary citizens demanded their governments take a stand against anyone who would harm a child, regardless of species. Dr. Vasquez made a crucial discovery while analyzing the increasing complexity of Kethavar's communications. Its language patterns are becoming more sophisticated as it spends time with us. I think prolonged exposure to human social structures is actually enhancing its cognitive abilities. This revelation led to another breakthrough. If Kethavar was becoming more capable through human contact, what might happen to the hybrid baby as it developed in a human environment? Agent Torres coordinated with xenobiological specialists who had been studying the data. Their conclusions were remarkable. The baby appeared to be developing neural pathways that existed in theoretical models, but had never been observed in any actual species. It was becoming something entirely new. The harvesters made a critical error, Dr. Kim explained to the assembled group. They assumed they could control evolution through forced breeding and conditioning. But evolution isn't about control. It's about adaptation and survival. This child adapted to survive in an environment of compassion rather than cruelty. Kethavar's device produced sounds that Elena's software translated as something approximating profound gratitude mixed with wonder. Human concept of nurture creates growth possibilities my people never considered. Young one thrives in protection rather than withering under pressure. As the deadline approached, one thing became clear to everyone in that precinct. Earth's first interspecies diplomatic crisis wasn't going to be resolved through traditional negotiation or military posturing. It was going to be decided by humanity's fundamental character. The question wasn't whether humans would fight to protect a child. The question was how far they were willing to go. Outside, crowds began gathering around police stations in every major city, holding signs reading "Sanctuary for all children" and "Earth protects the innocent." The harvesters were about to learn what happened when you threatened humanity's young. Dr. Elena Vasquez hadn't slept in 36 hours, but exhaustion was the last thing on her mind as she studied the data streaming across her multiple computer screens. The linguistic patterns from the gorilla's communication device were unlike anything in her extensive database of Earth languages, animal communication systems, or even theoretical xenolinguistic models. "Detective Chen," she called softly, not wanting to disturb the extraordinary scene playing out in the precinct's break room. The gorilla sat cross-legged on the floor, gently rocking the baby while Officers Martinez and Rodriguez took turns bringing bottles and clean diapers. The creature's maternal instincts were undeniable, yet it was clearly not the child's biological parent. "What have you found?" Chen asked, settling into a chair beside her workstation. "This language has mathematical precision," Elena explained, pointing to the wavelength patterns on her screen. "Every sound sequence follows logarithmic progressions that suggest advanced cognitive development. But here's what's really fascinating. The device isn't just playing recorded messages, it's translating thoughts in real time." Chen frowned. "That's impossible. 3 days ago I would have agreed with you. But look at this." Elna pulled up a comparison chart. When the gorilla sees the baby crying, the device produces sound patterns that translate roughly to "offspring distress requires nurture intervention." When officers approach with food, it says something like "sustenance providers demonstrate protection instinct." It's not just communicating, detective. It's analyzing human behavior and commenting on it. Before Chen could respond, commotion erupted outside. Through the windows they could see military vehicles arriving, followed by black SUVs with government plates. The federal response had arrived faster than anyone expected. Agent Rebecca Torres of the Department of Extraordinary Phenomena entered with the purposeful stride of someone accustomed to impossible situations. Behind her came a team of specialists, xenobiologists, quantum physicists, and individuals whose credentials were classified beyond Chen's clearance level. "Local law enforcement has done an exemplary job containing this situation," Torres announced, though her tone suggested the compliment came with conditions. "We'll be taking custody of both subjects immediately." "Like hell you will." Officer Martinez stepped forward, unconsciously positioning herself between the federal agents and the gorilla. "That creature walked in here seeking help. It trusted us. We're not just going to hand it over to be experimented on." Torres raised an eyebrow. "Officer Martinez, is it? Do you have any idea what you're dealing with here?" "I know it's intelligent, peaceful, and protecting a baby," Martinez replied firmly. "That's enough for me." The gorilla, sensing the tension, activated its device. The sounds that emerged were more complex than before, almost musical in their arrangement. Dr. Vasquez frantically worked to analyze the patterns. "It's asking for protection," she translated quickly, "but not for itself. For the child. And it's warning us about something coming." "Coming?" Torres' expression sharpened. "When?" Elena's fingers flew across her keyboard, processing the gorilla's latest communication. "The time references are... It's measuring in what might be Earth rotations. If I'm reading this correctly, we have less than 48 hours. 48 hours until what?" The answer came not from Dr. Vasquez, but from the FBI's astronomical monitoring station. Agent Torres's radio crackled to life with urgent reports of objects moving in Earth's outer atmosphere. Not meteors, not space debris, but artificial constructs maintaining precise orbital patterns. In the break room, the gorilla stood abruptly, its device producing a rapid series of urgent sounds. Elena's translation software struggled to keep up. Mining vessel, resource extraction, small ones taken for adaptation. Elena shook her head in frustration. "I'm missing key concepts, but this creature is talking about some kind of harvest operation." Torres was already coordinating with her team. "Aerospace Command reports 12 large objects maintaining geosynchronous orbit. They appeared simultaneously 3 hours ago, completely bypassing our early warning systems." Detective Chen felt a chill run down his spine. "Let me guess. 3 hours ago was exactly when our friend here showed up." The gorilla approached Elena's workstation, examining the screens with obvious intelligence. It pointed to the orbital tracking display, then activated its device again. This time the sounds were accompanied by gestures indicating numbers, movements, tactical information. "It's giving us intelligence," Elena breathed. "Ship positions, likely attack patterns, weak points in their formation." Officer Martinez knelt beside the baby, who seemed remarkably calm despite the chaos surrounding it. As she studied the child's features more closely, she noticed details that had escaped earlier examination. The eyes were subtly different, displaying a depth of awareness unusual for an infant. The skin, while appearing human, had an almost luminescent quality in certain light. "Agent Torres," she called out. "This baby isn't entirely human, is it?" Torres confirmed what Martinez had already suspected. Preliminary DNA analysis shows 94% human genetic markers. The remaining 6% doesn't match anything in our databases. "Hybrid," Elena said suddenly, looking up from her translations. "Our gorilla friend is explaining. This child is the result of their species attempting to create a bridge between our peoples. But something went wrong. The others of its kind, they were taken by the ships currently orbiting our planet. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. Earth wasn't dealing with a first contact scenario or an invasion. This was a rescue mission. The gorilla had escaped from whoever was controlling those ships and had brought the hybrid baby to the one place it believed could offer protection. A human police station, representatives of Earth's law enforcement and protection services. But why here specifically? Chen asked. The gorilla's response, filtered through Elena's increasingly sophisticated translation software, was simple and profound. Throughout its captivity, it had observed human behavior through various data streams. Among all the species it had encountered, only humans showed consistent willingness to protect the young of other species, even at great personal cost. It had studied footage of human firefighters rescuing animals from burning buildings, of Coast Guard crews risking their lives to save strangers at sea, of ordinary people adopting orphaned children from different cultures and races. The gorilla had concluded that if any species could be trusted to protect a hybrid child, caught between two worlds, it would be humanity. Agent Torres was coordinating rapidly with military command when Elena's computers chimed with an incoming signal. The communication wasn't coming from the gorilla's device this time. It was coming from the ships in orbit. The message was in perfect English. "Return our property or your species will learn the cost of interference. You have 24 hours. Outside, the strange lights in the sky began moving toward Earth. Officer Sarah Martinez had seen many strange things during her 15 years on the force in downtown Portland, but nothing quite like this. The automatic doors of the 14th precinct slid open with their usual mechanical whisper, and in walked what appeared to be a massive silverback gorilla. Not running, not aggressive, but walking upright with careful, deliberate steps. In its enormous arms, cradled with surprising gentleness, was a human baby. Sarah's hand instinctively moved toward her service weapon, but something made her pause. The gorilla's eyes, they weren't the wild, unfocused gaze of an escaped zoo animal. They were intelligent, purposeful, and filled with what could only be described as desperate urgency. The creature stopped 3 feet from the front desk, its massive frame towering over the bulletproof glass partition. The baby in its arms couldn't have been more than 6 months old, wrapped in a strange metallic blanket that seemed to shimmer with its own light. The infant was crying, but not the panicked wail of a child in danger. It was the hungry, tired cry every parent recognized. "Jesus Christ," whispered Desk Sergeant Rodriguez, his coffee cup frozen halfway to his lips.
"Sarah, are you seeing this?"
The gorilla tilted its head at the sound of their voices, then carefully, slowly extended its arms toward the desk. The message was clear. "Take the baby." Sarah's training kicked in. She activated the emergency alert system with her foot, while keeping her eyes locked on the creature. Within seconds, backup units would be dispatched, animal control would be notified, and the building would go into lockdown. But right now there was a baby involved, and that changed everything. "Rodriguez, call for medical and child protective services," she said quietly, never breaking eye contact with the gorilla. "And get Detective Chen down here now." The gorilla seemed to understand their hesitation. It took a step back and gently placed the baby on the floor, still wrapped in that strange blanket. Then it raised both hands, palms forward, in what was unmistakably a gesture of peace. The baby's cries grew louder. Officer Martinez made a decision that would later be scrutinized by investigators, psychologists, and eventually, xenobiologists. She opened the security door. "Easy there, big guy," she said softly, approaching with her hands visible and empty. "Nobody's going to hurt you or the baby." The gorilla's response was even more extraordinary. It pointed to the baby, then to Sarah, then pressed both hands to its own chest. The meaning was clear: the baby needed help, and the gorilla was entrusting it to her care. Sarah knelt beside the infant, noting immediately that despite the unusual circumstances, the child appeared healthy and well cared for. The metallic blanket was unlike anything she'd ever seen, seeming to regulate the baby's temperature automatically. There were no signs of abuse or neglect. "Where did you come from?" she whispered to the gorilla, who watched her every movement with those impossibly intelligent eyes. That's when the creature did something that would haunt Sarah's dreams for weeks to come. It reached into what appeared to be a hidden pouch in its thick fur and withdrew a small crystalline device. The object pulsed with soft blue light, and suddenly the air filled with sound. Not quite speech, not quite music, but something that fell somewhere between the two. The gorilla's mouth wasn't moving, but the sounds were definitely coming from the device. It was attempting to communicate. Detective Chen arrived just as the sound stopped. A 20-year veteran with a reputation for staying calm under pressure, he took one look at the scene and immediately called for the precinct's linguistics expert, Dr. Elena Vasquez, who consulted with them on cases involving foreign languages or unusual communication methods. "Has it made any aggressive moves?" Chen asked quietly. "None," Sarah replied, still kneeling beside the baby, who had quieted down since being removed from the gorilla's arms. "It's been completely peaceful. But detective, this isn't just an escaped gorilla. Look at its eyes. Look at that device." The gorilla seemed to sense their discussion and activated the device again. This time the sounds were different, more urgent. It pointed repeatedly at the baby, then at the windows, then at its own chest. The pattern was consistent. Baby outside self, baby outside self. Dr. Vasquez arrived within the hour, her usually immaculate appearance disheveled from being pulled away from her university lab. She took one look at the gorilla and the device and immediately began recording everything. "This is unprecedented," she breathed, setting up her equipment. "The vocal patterns coming from that device aren't random. There's structure, syntax. This is language." The gorilla watched their activities with what could only be described as patience, occasionally glancing toward the windows with obvious anxiety. Whatever had brought it here, whatever danger the baby faced, time was clearly a factor. As the hours passed, more officials arrived. Animal control specialists who quickly determined this was no ordinary gorilla. The creature's musculature was different, its posture too upright, its cranial capacity larger than any known primate. Pediatricians examined the baby and found it in perfect health, though they couldn't identify the origin of the strange blanket or the unusual vitamin levels in the child's system. Most disturbing of all was the radiation specialists' finding. Both the gorilla and the baby showed traces of exposure to elements not found on Earth. The isotopic signatures were completely unknown. As night fell over Portland, three things became clear to everyone in that precinct. First, they weren't dealing with an escaped zoo animal. Second, the baby wasn't entirely human despite appearing so. And third, something had happened somewhere else. Something that had forced an intelligent creature to risk everything to bring a child to the one place it believed could offer protection. The local police station. The question that would keep Detective Chen awake for the next several days was simple but terrifying. Protection from what? Outside, the first strange lights began appearing in the night sky,